Oi, what's the best game where you get to eat pie? What's the best game where you play a dead guy? Aye, you'll find out in VG247's podcast. Here, what's the best game where you swing from a rope? And what's the best game where you batter the Pope? Assassin's Creed 2. Like I said, you will find out in this here podcast.
Let's just bash this one out. Because fucking hell, Connor. Mind out the gutter, please. Okay.
That's a good start for this podcast.
I was just smiling because I'm just happy, and you're like, saying some sort of perv, which might come into play later, which is horrid.
There's a reason. Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, where we attempt to find the best game within a very specific category. I've said that sentence like what feels like about 200 times, and I still can't get it out without reading it from here. Don't know why. But for example, this week we're looking for the best game that you can't talk about at parties. I'm joined today by Alex Donaldson, who I specifically requested for this episode because I've talked to him at a few parties.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Sorry. And also joined by Connor, who I requested specifically for this episode because your Steam library is something of legend at this point, particularly in City of London Police, I hear. And also Kelsey, who's here for sins in a previous life, I think. But yeah, so this topic is inspired by Baldur's Gate 3, the imminent release thereof, which is a party-based game that you definitely can't bring up in normal company. Normie company, should I say. So let's get into it, because I don't think any of us wants to bear our arses for too long on this topic, do we? Kelsey, what have you got for us?
Right, so this one, there was 3 different routes I could go down. I could go down picking something really weird and not safe for work, but I thought about that one and thought, if I brought that up at a party, I feel like most of the people that I associate myself with would actually be quite entertained by that. So that was off the cards.
Yeah.
And then I thought I could think of a great game that is so mundane that if I brought it up at a party, people would literally fall asleep listening to me. And the first things that came to mind there was any game that involves building spaceships. Sorry, Jim, but it's just a snooze fest. Yeah. But then I realised that as many great games as there are, there's none that I actually enjoy. And then I thought, I could go for an actually controversial game that I don't want to bring up at parties whatsoever. But then I realised that I don't actually want to talk about that in the podcast either. So the game that I've picked is Euro Truck Simulator 2, which
it's a good one.
Which is something that I've been completely hyper-fixated on for the past few weeks, and I'm currently debating dropping £200 on a wheel just to play it with extra immersion. Euro Truck Simulator 2, if you don't know, you drive a truck in Europe. It's great. That's it. It's great. I don't know how to sell this to someone who hasn't played it, and I know that it sounds weird. And I know that you might think, why would someone want to sit and drive a truck in their spare time? You could just go drive a real truck if you really wanted to do that. I don't know, but it's really good. It's really therapeutic. It's relaxing, as long as you never go onto Truckers MP, which is the multiplayer mod, and go to Calais. If you go there, you're guaranteed a terrible time. That's all I'm saying. But so avoid Calais and you're fine. You're just cruising, just living life, put the radio on. You can really role play as a trucker. You can also get shouted at a lot for driving badly if you're me, but we're not going to talk about that.
Again, reflects real life in all these different wonderful little ways. I love Euro Truck Simulator 2. It's incredible.
I was very much one of those people who, I've had friends play Euro Truck Sim before, and I've always been like, why are you playing that? It just seems so boring. And then when the Steam sale happened, I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. And there's just no going back now. I'm an avid driving game fan now.
Become one of those people.
Yeah. I'm even eyeing up Farming Simulator. That's how bad it's getting.
I think basically the most people who love Euro Truck Simulator have that exact same journey with it. When you look at it, you're like, why would I want to simulate doing the most boring job on the planet?
Right.
But then But then you do it, and you start mapping turn signals to triggers, and you're like, oh, I quite like the mechanics
and then you
of driving here. Yeah.
You realize if you do enough jobs, you can hire workers to do jobs for you.
Yeah.
And then you can buy just an endless array of trucks, and it's great. And if you get bored of trucks, guess what? You can just buy a car. You can buy a bus if you want.
And it's got incredible digital tourism chops, this game, right? Because it's literally like the entire continent. And some places have had like updates, like they've like the Iberian Peninsula, which is like one of the most amazing places like that you can visit in video games entirely. Started driving around Lisbon after like going to Lisbon in real life. I'm like, this is incredible. But like, had I gone to actual Lisbon in real life and started driving and like started delivering wooden pallets to people, I wouldn't have loved it so much. I probably would have found it quite stressful.
But that's kind of why I think it's a good party game, though, because like if you're talking to normal people, like Euro Truck Simulator is a great game to be like, oh yeah, I was playing this, because it's a game people understand, right? You're just driving their truck around. You could be like, oh, I went to Lisbon. It's quite, you can see all these nice places around Europe and Euro Truck Simulator, and sure, it's not like actually going there, but like you can have like a normal discussion about certain places in Europe. Surely.
Do you know any like actual normal people, Connor?
I do. I went for... in research for this podcast, I went out to the pub with a bunch of normal friends on Saturday. And, yeah, they're all right.
Can't mention league around them, but they're all right.
I can't mention, like, any part of my job to them. It's kind of like...
Yeah.
See, so the reason I actually brought Euro Truck Sim up is because I did have a conversation about it with my very real friends like a week or two ago. Yeah. And one of them has played it, right? And I kid you not, that conversation, there's about 8 of us. It was everyone looking at us like we were fucking aliens, whilst me and him just spoke about the fact that we really enjoyed trucking.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. You can't talk about that at parties because everyone goes silent and stares at you like you're weird.
This is a really good choice right out the gate, because it's like, it's quintessential, right? Because it is that sort of game. It's exactly like it's impossible to explain the appeal of it to someone who hasn't already indulged.
Yeah. And
it's brilliant. It is an incredible game, and Andy Kelly often compares it to like, it's like Elite, except you're just driving like a normal vehicle, you're not in space.
It totally is Elite, though. That's what it is. Yeah.
And it's better than Elite, frankly, because it's not really far up its own arse. It's just roads, and you can, as you say, you can dial into a radio station that plays Dolly Parton, and you can really live the life without having to live that life.
And on the online multiplayer, you get people who will run the radio stations, and some of them will do an absolutely amazing job of it. And it's like, wow, like there's a lot to love about it.
That's awesome. One of the sad things about like YouTube and Spotify and things like that is sort of the decline of internet radio. I had a friend who, as a hobby, would do like he had the drive time slot on some internet radio station.
Yeah.
And I used to run one. I used to run
Amazing.
It was only AI powered, but it was a game music radio station, and it wasn't big, but it used to have like a couple of hundred people listening to it all the time. But then as soon as everyone started uploading soundtracks to YouTube, it was like, well, this is sort of pointless now. Gave up on it. But yeah,
that's like that's wonderful. I want to mention because I've been wanting to talk about this game for a while now. There's an early access game on Steam called Motor Town Behind the Wheel, and I think it's made by one guy, and I think he's Korean. It's like version 0.6 at the moment. It's got a very similar appeal to Euro Truck Simulator, except it's all different kinds of cars, all different kinds of jobs, taxis, police, etc.
This looks good.
And it is, and it's in that kind of like low poly style, and it's like, it's not based on a real place, it's just like a big island that he's invented. It's incredible. It's compatible with a wheel, and you get some really good driving done on that. But that also has like radio stations you can dial into, and it's just really nice to kind of cut about. I was playing it one week, and it was I think like Duran Duran just came on, and it's like I wouldn't even listen to that normally by myself, but when it comes on in a video game, you're like, yes, like the Avril Lavigne effect in Burnout Paradise, So yeah, I wanted to shout out to that game because, as I say, similar appeal and incredible, and just like an amazing achievement. But yeah, Euro Truck Simulator 2, a very, very, very worthy addition to this topic, I think. Let's move on to, I don't know who to pick first.
Alex, you want to pick Alex first? Please.
Is that just because you don't want to say anything? You just want to hide?
I want to hide away.
All right,
like my electricity goes out or something in the next 10 minutes.
Okay, Alex, what Final Fantasy game have you got? Sorry.
Well, no, I thought
what game have you got for us?
I'm the guy who picked Galgun back when. And so,
and amazingly, you didn't get much. You didn't get much cut for that.
No, I've taken all the heat from that.
as Kelsey said, you can sort of go multiple ways. You can sort of lean into that. And I started thinking back, and I was like, what are the most controversial games? So I was thinking about Night Trap. And I was thinking about about Carmageddon and stuff. I don't know, all that sort of, Bully. I very seriously considered picking Rule of Rose,
right?
Which I think I mentioned on this podcast once before, but that was a Silent Hill-esque horror game. That stars like a 15-year-old girl and all the villains. It's sort of, got that Resident Evil 7 vibe with the family, except instead of a family, they're all young girls. They're all like 7, 8, 9, 10, and they're torturing your character. And even though it doesn't really have any awful material in it, politicians latched onto it and thought it was a paedophile game. And they legitimately pulled out of releasing it in Europe because the pressure got too great after they'd sent review code and stuff. So it was super late in the game that they sent all that to landfill. And if you managed to get your hands on one of those PS2 copies of that game, you legitimately, it's worth hundreds and hundreds if it's a European copy, because they didn't release them in most countries. So I thought about that, but then I was like, that isn't too good. Then I thought about the really offensive stuff, there was that game in the early 2000s that was called, was it Larden versus Bush, and it was like a 9/11 game.
Oh, there's so many of that type of shit on Steam.
There's so much. I mean, I think the most famous one that comes to mind is the completely reprehensible ethnic cleansing game that caused a huge stir when that came out. And Anti-Defamation League tried to get that banned and everything. And then I was like, oh, this is all miserable. And even going down the path of the perverted stuff, which is sort of funny. I was like, we've done that with Galgun, and also you might be at a party of a bunch of people who are wrongans and who are just like, I love Skullgirls.
No, not yes to
clip
that.
That out of context.
I was going to say, it very much depends on the company you're keeping here, which...
So then I was thinking about what don't you discuss at politics, and what don't you discuss at parties? Politics. And I was thinking about games, and I have a lot of time I haven't played the newest one, but there's a franchise on PC called Democracy. And Democracy is truly great. It's basically a simulation game, mostly through menus and stuff, where you can simulate democracy. In the real world, you pick your country, and so if you want to take America and try and make America a communist state, you can sort of go through the motions and figure out how you might be able to convince people before it probably inevitably collapses in on itself. If you wanted to try to make Britain not a hellhole that pivots back to right wing every 10, 15 years, you could try, but you'd probably find it would still go against you. And these games are brilliant. I actually think not only are they really compelling games, and it's not just boring like politics policy stuff. It's all the factors that you would have to think about if this was the real world. So it's like if you did try to take America to be a communist state or a socialist state, you would be at very real risk of being assassinated.
Yeah,
depending on how quickly you're moving.
Take into account the culture of the country?
Yes, because so every single country is programmed differently. Yeah,
I see. Right,
so it truly takes into. And I like that it's not a game that really lectures you about politics. It's just sort of like, here it is. You know, we've sort of programmed it to be as realistic to what we feel the demographics are in the real world. And obviously the beauty of politics is in most countries, the demographics are there in the voting stats. So they're able to plug those into the game and get a realistic response. They're really, really good games. They're really fun. They actually make you... They're really fun if you like, stats and strategy stuff. Yeah. Much as with Euro Truck, I think you've got to be a certain type of person to enjoy this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But, I really liked it because it's just... It lets you experiment with things, and it actually does it in such a way where it makes you think a little bit about real politics as well, in ways that you perhaps wouldn't if you weren't engaging with it in that way. And there's two reasons, obviously, you don't bring it up at parties. One is very similar to Euro Truck Simulator. If you try and have a conversation with someone about this, and they've got no interest in it, they'll look at you like you're mad. Like, what? You've been running digital simulations of not just of elections, but of the years between elections where you're making policy decisions and trying to keep Parliament on balance and whatever. And there is also the element of you're then bringing up politics at a party, which is a fucking disaster. Even in, especially in the current state of the world.
Like, whoever you're talking to is just going to be like edging backwards toward the kitchen. Like, sounds great.
So I was just, it jumped out at me. I was literally flicking through my Steam library and I was like, man, I love those games. It's totally something I would never bring up at a party. I hate talking about politics at parties anyway, although inevitably you have too much to drink and then everybody starts. It's always the way, at least with my friends.
Yeah.
It got so bad with us that we had to split the group chat. We have a group chat called Booze, which is just our standard group chat, but it's called that because it's descended from a group chat that was used to arrange piss-ups when we were students. But it got so, during COVID, it got so heavy in there that some of the lads are just like, can you just take all this depressing shit to another chat, please? So now we have our separate politics chat. And that is exactly why you don't bring up politics at parties. See,
I thought you were going to...
Oh, not a political
some
split,
guys who were well up for Trump, so they formed a splinter group and...
No, I mean, it's
like a 4chan, 8chan situation, but it's just my mates.
We're lucky to not have any extremists in our group. We just had to split to save the people who didn't want to hear about it.
I got a text from my ex-wife the other day. My mum was staying with them, seeing the kids, and I just asked how they were doing, and she said, I just had a really intense discussion with your mum about Nigel Farage. I was like,
always good.
It's a classic, right?
Yeah, cheers. Sorry about that. So politics, that's a really good angle, actually. I didn't consider that one, because obviously, like, the as you say, the two kind of obvious ones are like perverted or boring. But there is also like the added element of like, deep-seated tribalism that you don't want to get into as well. All right. Oh, God. You're making us wait for it the whole episode. Right, okay. No. Connor.
Okay, so
dear God, what have you got for us?
I volunteered to be on this episode, and it's like after about an hour.
You were really excited about it last week.
I immediately regretted it because Kelsey's right. There are free paths, right? You can go great games that are you just can't really talk about because they're boring, or at least initially boring. But I didn't think that was like a good podcast topic because I feel like if you talk about a boring game, you kind of just give a boring speech, right? There are games you can't There are games you can't talk about because because a lot of the joy of a game is like in discovering things. I played a game called 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, which relies quite a lot on its narrative developments and sort of the twists and turns. So I was like, you can't really talk about that at a party, right?
Skate in it. It's got Rim in the title.
Yeah. Ooh. And also a lot of my parties, like as you kind of hinted at, are full of people who play a lot of games, right? So maybe they'd be interested either way. I think
Good game
speaks. As well. Yeah, it's great. I think it speaks to Donaldson's character that he didn't go down the perv route, because it's so funny and so easy, and there's so much, right? But because Jim's right, a lot of my friends would want to talk about it because it is a laugh, right? I had to really dive into some shit, some really grim stuff. I initially went on itch.io and I thought I found a winner in FAP Nights at Frenny's. Which is a NSFW visual novel. You see it, right? You can't show maybe we can show the official key art in the podcast, because it is
I'm not sure
funny.
I want to Google this.
You don't.
It's all right. Connor,
you see it. It's
me
initially
press
the moment I saw it, I burst out laughing. I think I DM'd Jim immediately, like, this has to be mentioned. And then I regretted it, because Jim's like, you have to talk about this in the podcast. Okay, so there's no going out now.
He was like, no, I want to pick something else. And I was like, well, you're not.
So I tried to dip out.
I've ended up on that.
I was like, oh shit. So like, I tried to back out. I was like, what about like Skullgirls? Because it's a bit like initially sus, but that game is fantastic. Or what about like all these other like great games that are a bit.
So I need to warn listeners, if you're going to Google that previously mentioned game, just be aware the official itch.io page has like GIFs of the action straight away. So just be warned if you're at work.
I tried to pivot to other games, but I kind of resigned myself to. I was like, I have to. It's too late now. Jim's locked me in, and it's honestly also my best chance at winning, right? But I strongly believe for podcast games you should play the game, and I'm sorry to announce that FAP Nights at Frenny's isn't actually that good.
Oh, you have
played it?
I did. I had Baldur's Gate 3 on my PC, and instead of playing that...
You played FAP Nights at Frenny's.
It's officially better than Baldur's Gate 3.
I'll tell you what, the shagging scenes are about as explicit. But the problem is, it's not that great. And as pointed out in a review that I also DM'd Jim, there were a bunch of issues with it. Like the puzzles are kind of, there are bugs, and it's not really great, and it's not really balanced, and it's
gotta check if my favourite website gave it out.
I've been
so
I've been sent I got sent a TLDR kind of points list at the end of this review that Connor found, and one of them is all caps, sex overhaul required.
Which is a problem, because that's what all the freaks actually downloading this game actually want, right? But that was bad, because my ace in the hole turned out to be bad. Like, not good, so not... so
don't say ace in the hole.
I just gave up, and I went back to a game we discussed on Slack a while ago, and that was gifted to me by a friend called Sex with Hitler. And that is my official pick. Because there's a ton of these games. It's part of a series, and the first one is apparently the best one. I also downloaded this, and it's about the same. Is
that game literally just a title?
I didn't know that's the thing. Sequel.
There are tons. There's let me Google this. Let me get
Sex of Hitler 2069. That sounds sick.
Yeah, they made a futuristic one. They made a bunch. Again, don't Google this one, because if you go on the Steam page, it's straight up just like, not for work.
I love how all these have positive reviews on, like, they've got the thumbs up on Steam when you look them up on Steam.
Yeah,
I suppose it's a limited audience, and they all absolutely love it, right?
Yeah. I also played this instead of Baldur's Gate 3, and it made me laugh a lot.
What does your Steam account look like? Also, did you buy this?
No, I was gifted this. After talking about it in Slack, I talked about it with my Discord friends, and one of them spent £4.49 to gift me this. So yeah, my Steam account is just a bunch of bangers.
To them.
A bunch of fantastic games like Hi-Fi Rush and Baldur's Gate 3 and Warframe, and then Sex with Hitler just like halfway down.
There's a folder on my Steam library which never gets opened because it's just weird gifted games that I do not want to be seen anywhere.
So my kind of my conclusion is this: I hope at parties you're surrounded with people who wouldn't want to talk about sex with Hitler. It's
both
not
the game or
it's not really the sort of thing. It's kind of a conversation killer more than anything. Like, it's not like the game apparently is highly rated on Steam and people love it, but it's not really a good conversation game. And
Jesus, I've just clicked out the God,
don't do that.
Put up is awful.
Yeah, it's really bad. I went to the pits for this because here's the thing:
you're doing God's work.
Jim said that he wants the viewers, the listeners, our fans, to eventually have more wins than me. So I have to go all out.
Oh, so you're not going to kick off if you lose this week, then?
No, I will kick off because this is like really damaging to my reputation and my mental health. And if I don't win this podcast this week, it will be for nothing. So
I guess you're going to kick off then.
What were you not going to pick Sex with Hitler?
Yeah. Funnily enough, Connor, I'm not going to pick Sex with Hitler.
But you couldn't let him down, can you, Jim?
Euro Truck Simulator is so easy to talk about. You just talk about, I drove to Surrey. It was
really
great.
Not. People think you're weird.
Right. And
I like how you just completely dismissed Donaldson's suggestion.
Well, because his suggestion's better. I'm trying to think of a reason why you shouldn't pick Donaldson's. Just don't. Right. Just pick mine. You need to think of... Listen. Please pick mine. Please.
This is why you should have picked Fap Nights at Frenny's nightclub.
No, because it's worse. It's not as good.
Unbelievable.
But
from
the
what I can tell. The concept is brilliant, but also, like, apparently it's not very good. So.
All right. Like, just to put Connor out of his misery for a minute, right? Well, not to put him out of his misery, but let's pause for a moment because there is now a fourth contestant every week, like we discussed last week, and it is the audience. Okay, and we've had a couple of nice suggestions, a couple of nice stories. One of them came in. A couple of them came in on the talk about not being able to say things at parties. Two of these came in on the Jim Trinker Discord. And when you're like, oh yeah, I've got a Discord, and it's called like the Me Discord. You sound demented, but I swear, it's a nice little group of people, and I stress little because it's not like hundreds of people. It's just like a few nice friends who talk about stuff. Tidal suggests Europa Universalis 4. Because there's no way to describe it to someone who's never heard of it without sounding like you've been playing an imperialism simulator and spend your free time doing colonialism. That is a consideration.
That's a solid pick.
Yeah, that's the problem. There are a bunch of games you just can't bring up because you sound nuts, right?
But my favorite pick from the audience, and this is it's a serious one, like it's not a jokey one. It's Mr. Joe Molin. We got it as a YouTube comment, and he says the best game that you can't talk about at parties is Telltale's The Walking Dead, the final season. It released in 2018. He's got a really good reason, actually. It released in 2018 after both The Walking Dead and Telltale games, Choose Your Own Adventure moment in pop culture, had well and truly passed by. And yet, even whilst Telltale Games, the house was burning down to the ground, they released arguably the best Walking Dead game. It capped off Clementine's story with an emotionally effective ending, and a first for Telltale, it featured actual gameplay sections. Even bringing up the topic of The Walking Dead at any sort of social gathering will instantly tar you as a retrograde idiot who was willing to sit through any old subpar shite. But that game, the final season, was actually very good. No. And I really like that reasoning there. It's like,
that's actually good, yeah.
Because everyone will assume, come off it. I played the first episode of season 2 and it was crap, and that's the end of it. And
there was that time when those sorts of games seemed like they were going to be the biggest thing.
Yeah. It's when we were still using the phrase the water cooler game, right? And
is that Star Trek game out?
Yeah. I reviewed it.
I've forgotten it had come out.
It's a really good game, but obviously it's probably just disappeared into the ether now, because that sort of game has kind of fell off a bit, isn't it? But yeah, all great suggestions from the audience. But all right, There's something that's about to happen now, right? And so we have a new theme tune to replace the one that Tom hated for when we need to pick something. And because it's me that needs to pick something, it's my theme tune, right? This was recorded by a guy called Dave Ballmer, who is on a podcast called Sonic the Comic, the Podcast. And he likes doing little a cappella songs about stuff. And he just did this one day. And I've never had anywhere to use it, but he sent it to me again, and it's like a full 1 minute and 30 or something. So just relax and enjoy the new theme tune for this the end section. Right. And I want everyone to listen to it because you put a lot of effort into it in 2014, and it's finally going to pay off. Tom insisted on that other one getting replaced, right? This is a monkey paw moment for Tom Ari. That's what it's been replaced with.
You know what it reminds me of?
The other one was better.
The other one was way better. It was way better.
It's giving Rimmer song vibes.
Yeah. I think you're pretty. I imagine Ballmer probably had that very much in mind when he did it. It's a very talented man. What are you on about? Listen, all right. Okay.
It's not the Jim Trinker podcast either. It's the VG 24/7 podcast.
Yeah, it's basically my podcast.
You're going to slap your face on the logo or something?
I might do. Well, it's not the Tom Mori podcast anymore, so someone has to kind of step up now, right?
Can we get individual acapellas for each of the regulars?
No. Especially not since you just called his work shit.
I'm all right.
Okay, it's like in a good way.
All right, okay. Look, I need to pick something now. Great effort from the audience for their technically second time out, but the audience haven't won it this week. Donaldson, I thought you had a really interesting angle on it. You don't bring politics up at parties unless it's the Labour Party. But sorry, Connor, I can't even write sex with Hitler on the post that accompanies this because I'm pretty sure we'll get sanctioned or something. So
no, you can.
I don't know how that's even going to work. I'm going to have to refer to sex with Hitler without actually referring to sex with Hitler. I need to stop saying sex with Hitler. I know. Kelsey won the last. I know you won the last time you were on as well. It's going to look like I'm showing favourites, but Euro Truck Simulator.
No, I deserve this.
Well, you did also do a steering wheel review.
Trains are f***ing horrid as well. Oh yeah,
video.
Yeah.
So, this is absolutely your bag, right?
Yeah.
Are you claiming this
I didn't choose this game for Jim. I chose this game because it is the best game that I would never bring up at a party.
It is an incredible game, and it's well renowned for being an incredible game. And I think everyone can agree it's an incredible game.
I'm gonna go and buy the Scandinavia DLC later. I told myself that if I won this podcast, I would buy it. So thanks for that.
Well,
I'm gonna go drive through the forest.
I'm gonna go have sex with Hitler. So I mean, who's really?
Well.
All right. Okay. I don't even know how to wrap that up after what you just said, Connor. So I will leave you with this.
But you should always wrap it up.
Yeah, we should always.
Right, I'm going.
Yeah, goodbye.
Right, okay. Obviously, as always, please leave us, if you can stomach it, please leave us a 5-star review. I mean, we've got no right asking that this week, have we? Surely. Please leave us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. And audience, please keep sending in those suggestions. YouTube comments are preferable, tweets as well. Otherwise, we'll just have to mind the Jim Trinket Discord again. I don't like bringing it up because it makes me sound like such a wanker. Next week, the topic will be the best game that you love Despite Itself, and we've got a special guest on that episode in the form of Owen O'Donnell, who you might know as the person in charge of the Infinite Review, Mecha Gamezilla, the person who did that documentary about Thatcher's tech base last week. He's a very talented and funny man. I'm looking forward to him coming on. So look forward to that. But yes, audience suggestions, please, for the best game that you love, Despite Itself. Bit of crossover with this week's, really, isn't it? But please don't submit Sex with Hitler. All right, bye.
Submit Sex with Hitler. Bye.